Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the best damn movie-related show on the planet Earth, the John Campea Show, coming from right here in our quaint little studio. I'm, of course, your host, John Campea, and this is the show where we all get together and talk about those things that we love, the things we celebrate, the things that give us joy, movies and movie news, TV and streaming, and all that good stuff. Thank you so much for being here and making our little show part of your day. Joining me in the festivities, not here in the studio, as is often the case on Fridays, but coming to us from the observatory itself, writer, director, producer, Robert Meyer Burnett. Robert, how you doing today, sir?
John, it's great to be here. It's Friday, and, I'm going to go down and have my cereal and get on my bus with the friends.
Can I tell you the story? So, when I was a kid, I mean, I like every other kid, right? Like, I would eat so much cereal. And about a year ago, Ann and I were at the grocery store and we're walking down one of the aisles and I come across one of my two favorite cereals. My favorite cereals are Captain Crunch and Frosted Flakes. And I come across this big box of Frosted Flakes. And you know what? I said, you know what, baby, I'm going to get some Frosted Flakes. I haven't had that in a while. And get that. So I got this big box of Frosted Flakes and I got a big jug of 2% milk. And I had it for breakfast and that was damn good. So I gave myself a second bowl. And then lunchtime came and I'm like, it's really easy just to make a bowl of cereal. And I had another bowl of cereal. And I did that for about a week. And then I got on the scales and I gained 13 pounds in 10 days. I'm like, the only thing that's changed is my cereal because I don't eat it in moderation like everybody else. I have 13 pounds in 10 or 11 or 12 days.
Yeesh.
It was, yeah.
I'm a frosted mini wheats guy. I like the long ones and I dip them in milk when I watch movies, So I get my fiber. Well, get some colon blow. I don't know how many people got that reference, but anyway, guys, thank you so much for being here and joining us. We're not here to talk about cereal. We're here to talk about the world of entertainment, and we're going to do that right now. And by the way, we're going to start off the show by talking about a few topics we got lined up for you guys. Then in the second part of the show, we're going to take your live comments and questions. If you guys have a thought, theory, opinion, observation, question that you have that you'd like us to address, go ahead and fire it on into our super chats in the live chat. You got to be watching live in order to do that. And as long as you send one in that I believe is appropriate to be addressed on the show, you'll hear us address it in the second part of the show. The super chats are currently still open, but I will be turning them off at some point during the show because they're already starting to fill up, but you can still get some in if you'd like. All right. With that all down, guys, let's get things started. We're going to start off with this. Stranger Things season 5 just came out. And while I don't believe it was one of the stronger seasons, I still thought it was a really good season. I thought it was overall a good season. And even though I really didn't like the first half of the finale, I liked the first half of the finale. I didn't really like the second half of the finale, but then they just crushed the landing with that whole Dungeons and Dragons playing scene down in the basement. That was utter perfection. It was great. So the question became, though, how many people actually watched it? And new reports, the number of reports are coming out now for streaming numbers that were gathered together during the last week of December. And they look really good for Stranger Things. According to this report in The Hollywood Reporter, Stranger Things by far was the number one watch thing on streaming with over 3,000 million minutes of it watched. About halfway behind it was the new Diddy documentary by 50 Cent. Landman in there at number 3, Wake Up Dead Man, the movie. Now, what's really interesting, if you want to put into perspective, though, about just how big these numbers are, let's go down and look at the chart for original series. Now, one of the shows, Rob, that a lot of people have been talking about is Pluribus. And this is not a negative thing on Pluribus whatsoever, but a lot of people talking about Pluribus. I want to point something out. Pluribus on original series came in at number 9, and a lot of people watched it with 360 million minutes watched. Stranger Things had nearly 10 times the viewership as Pluribus did. But again, 10 that's times the subscribers, though.
Well, let's get to that in a second. That's not a negative thing on Pluribus. That's just kind of highlighting just how many people were watching Stranger Things. So I would attribute this to a couple of things, obviously, Rob. I would say the first thing I would attribute it to is it's on a platform that has many more subscribers than I believe Pluribus was Apple TV Plus, if I'm not mistaken, which, by the way, should have more subscribers. But right now, it doesn't have anywhere near as many subscribers as Netflix. So there's that. The second thing is Netflix is a Stranger Things, I should say, is a series that we have lived with now for nearly a decade and has been a pop cultural mainstay and pillar for nearly a decade over the span of its 5 seasons, and this being the big conclusion. Of course, there's all that. So those are two pretty big factors. But Rob, when I look at these numbers, because I don't think either you or I think Stranger Things is the greatest show. Like I think both you and I have liked Stranger Things. We're pro Stranger Things. I like it
for sure.
But I don't think either of us are going to put it in the top 10 greatest shows of all time list. So when you look at these numbers and you're seeing that, like with other popular shows, it's like 10xing their viewership in some cases. What has it been about Stranger Things now that it's in our rearview mirror that has made it so popular, so sticky, that people have just continued to come back to it like year after skipping year? What is it about this series that does that, and what do you attribute it to?
Well, I think, like anything, you have, first of all, great characters that I think were very appealing. I have a belief that great entertainment it presents you with a world that you want to be a part of. You want to join it. You want to live in that world. And I think that Stranger Things' audience, when it hit them, I mean, if I was 12 years old and saw Stranger Things when it first debuted, I would have thought to myself, man, I wish I was one of those kids, and I wish these kids were my friends. Because it wasn't about the most popular kids. It was about kind of the weirdos and the outcasts. And it turns out it was the very fact that they were weirdos and outcasts that they could recognize what was going on in Hawkins, and they got embroiled in what was happening. And they were, I think they were irresistible. And it was almost like, John, that show could have been about anything. I mean, sure, it had the extra added benefit of having monsters and sci-fi and horror elements and all of that, and probably family dynamics a lot of us could recognize, broken families, single mothers, a man who never was a father but became a surrogate father to somebody. It was just kind of a delicious, frothy mix of what science fiction, fantasy, and horror does best, which at its core presents us with a group of human beings, maybe misfits, maybe disparate people that you wouldn't think that would be friends or that would come together to fight or accomplish a goal. And in a way, it also kind of represented what America can be, because it was set in an American small town, and it had all of those things happening. And then because it was successful, you got to watch these people grow up. So the show grew up with its audience over a 10-year period of time, its core audience. And I think it was a show that friends and family and adults could enjoy. I mean, I liked it from the horror perspective. I liked the idea that it was a total homage to the time when I grew up in the 80s and reading Stephen King novels. So I really think it checked a lot of boxes. And ultimately, at the end of the day, it was really entertaining.
Yeah, I mean, I think you kind of nailed that with the part about, like, especially the characters. Like, these characters, I think even those of us who are adults, we saw a lot of ourselves, I think, in one or multiples of those characters, whether it was Mike or Will or Dustin or whoever. I think there's a little bit of a nostalgia thing there too, but we've seen many examples of 80s use nostalgia that never amounted to anything. So you can't just say that that's what attributed to it. But yeah, they just found a way to make it intriguing and make it go. And they continue to this day, Rob, to enjoy all kinds of success. And you know what? Good for them. Anyway, guys, question is for you. What do you think about this? The rating numbers for Stranger Things are like astronomical. They're just huge, like 10xing some other really popular shows. What do you attribute that to? Whatever you guys think, jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, let's move on to this, shall we? You know, after the Oscars, I think the next couple of most important award season stuff that we as fans should be paying attention to is certainly not that garbage known as the Golden Globes. but rather SAG, which we talked about a little bit yesterday, the Screen Actors Guild. But the other one, but I put up right there with it, is the DGA, the Directors Guild of America. Of course, this is when all the directors, the actual directors, the people who make our movies, get together every year at the DGA Awards, and they kind of together proclaim who they think amongst their peers were the best directors of the year. And the announcement has come out about who the nominees are for the DGA Awards this year. And I got to tell you, man, it is a who's who and an unbelievably stacked and a list of names that makes me really happy to be alive at this era of filmmaking, that we have filmmakers like this making the movies that we get to watch and enjoy. The nominees from the DGA for Best Director of the Year from the directors themselves this year are Paul Thomas Anderson from One Battle After Another, Ryan Coogler for Sinners, Guillermo del Toro for Frankenstein, Josh Safdie for Marty Supreme, and Chloe Zhao for Hamnet. There are our 5 nominees as picked by the directors for Best Director of the Year. And I just want to sit here for a second. Like, the Safdies are emerging names. Now, I'm not a fan of Marty Supreme. I didn't like the film, but you can see that this is an artistic visionary director making it. And the Safdies themselves as a combo have been great. I just like to sit here and look at this list as name. We live in an era right now where we are getting films by Paul Thomas Anderson, by Ryan Coogler, by Chloe Zhao, by the Safdies, by Guillermo del Toro. It's an incredible list. Again, I would have bumped Marty Supreme off there, but Josh Safdie is an incredible director. We already know that. Rob, you have a chance now to take a look at this nominees list. I think it's an incredible list, even though it doesn't have names like Quentin Tarantino on it because he didn't have anything this year. We didn't have anything from Christopher Nolan. We didn't have anything from Denis Villeneuve this year. We didn't have anything from Steven Spielberg this year. This is just such a great representation past some of those GOATs that we have that I absolutely love. What do you think about the list of names here, and who is your pick to win the DGA this time around?
Well, first of all, if you look at that, look at who's represented on that. I mean, you've got immigrants from around the world. You have people of color. You've got Guillermo del Toro, Josh Safdie. You've got Paul Thomas Anderson. So it's a great cross-section of different kinds of storytellers coming from all different kinds of backgrounds and directions. And it's exactly what you want to see in a list like this. Because I always say, you know, at the end of every one of my YouTube shows, I always say every person you meet has a story to tell. What we want are people from all kinds of different points of view to be telling stories. And this list shows that 2025 was an incredible year for incredible movies from all points of view. And I think that's really exciting for cinema. That said, this is a tough list, man. This is a tough one to pick because out of this list, I kind of have to go with my favorite movie in the list, which is Sinners. You know, I'm a big Ryan Coogler fan. To watch his career from Fruitvale Station to convince Stallone to let him make Creed, to going to Black Panther and Wakanda Forever, big giant properties, and then coming back making his own movie again in Sinners and getting an unprecedented deal to own the negative later. He's kind of a hero. Congratulations. And he's continuing to work with friends that he met in high school, like his composer. I can't pronounce, you know, it's good. His last name is difficult to pronounce, but you took me to that Black Panther concert. I mean, come on. And these guys, he's got a great group around him. That said, I love Chloe Zhao's Nomadland, not for everybody. And Paul Thomas Anderson, I've been watching him since Hard 8 and love his films. Hell, I love Phantom Thread. And so it's a tough call, man. And Guillermo del Toro, who's, you know, our genre fan, the guy made Pacific Rim, the greatest movie ever made, in my humble opinion. No, I'm kidding. But it's one of them. And I mean, I would have to go with Sinners, I think. But if any one of them won, I'd be like, all right. I mean, Guillermo del Toro's longtime passion project was Frankenstein. Chloe Zhao brought her I haven't, by the way, to be fair, Hamnet, I have not yet seen.
Oh, dude, it's so powerful. I know. I can't wait powerful.
To see it, but I'm a fan of hers, dude. We're eternal supporters. So hey, so I think this is a fantastic list. It speaks well to what we got this year as far as cinema is concerned. But I got to go with my boy. I got to go with Mr. Coogler.
Yeah, this is one of those lists where, okay, with all due respect to Guillermo del Toro, because Frankenstein is my all-time favorite Frankenstein movie. And it came close to becoming my favorite Guillermo del Toro movie, but I think Pan's Labyrinth still has to have the top spot there. But I think it's my second favorite Guillermo del Toro movie. That said, I think there are 3 names on this that I could totally see winning, and I would have absolutely zero issue with winning. Ryan Coogler, Paul Thomas Anderson for One Battle After Another, and Chloe Zhao for Hamnet. Because like Hamnet, I don't know if there's another movie this year that I felt as emotionally moved by the end of the film that I had been as emotionally moved as what Chloe Zhao did. Chloe Zhao, you know what? Here's a fun thing too. Chloe Zhao and Ryan Coogler, we're in an era right now where we have these 2 emerging well, they're not even emerging. I mean, Chloe Zhao is already an Academy Award winner, and Ryan Coogler is one of the hottest directors in Hollywood. But I feel like we're just at the beginning for them, for these 2. You know, I mean, Paul Thomas Anderson, we've been very lucky to have him for a long time already. But I'm just saying, like, Chloe Zhao and Ryan Coogler in particular, I feel like we're just getting started on their creative journey. I think if I was going to give it to anybody, I think we're going to side with you on this. I think it would be to Ryan Coogler. I think the odds-on favorite is going to be Paul Thomas Anderson. Yeah. I think he's going to be the odds-on favorite to take it.
That's an incredible movie.
And I have zero issue with that. I have no problem. If they get up there and read the name and the winner is Paul Thomas Anderson, I take no issue with that. That's great. But if I was a voter in the DGA, which I am not, I think my first vote would be Ryan Coogler. I think my second vote would be Chloe Zhao. And then my third vote would be Paul Thomas Anderson. But I'm okay with any order that you do those 3 in, because all 3 of them did such a great job. And just another, this is the great thing about award season, Rob, is we get to really focus on those movies that really highlight why we love film. And the DGA nominations just does that again. All right, guys, question is for you. What do you think about the nominee list here for the DGA's highest honors, the highest honor a director can get other than the Oscar itself? Best director. I mean, we got a Safdie up there. We got Ryan Coogler in there. We got Paul Thomas Anderson, Guillermo del Toro, and Chloe Zhao. I mean, these 5 just really represent how great it is to be a film fan, really. Whatever you guys think about it, jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, let's go on to this. You know, I don't think we've ever done this, but we're going to play ourselves a game of overreaction for 2 days in a row. I don't think we've ever done overreaction 2 days in a row, but we had so many good submissions come in the other day, and we took some more in today from you guys sending in hot takes. So this is how overreaction works. We had jumped on the YouTube channel a little bit earlier, and we asked our YouTube channel members, do you guys have any hot takes? Send them on in, and then what we've done is we've gathered up some of those hot takes, and Rob and I are now going to tell you if those hot takes are overreactions or not. So let's get things kicked off here, shall we? And we're going to start off with one coming to us from Jason Paget, who writes, the DC Universe can be successful without a billion-dollar movie. Rob, is it an overreaction to say that the DC Universe can be considered successful even if it doesn't have a billion-dollar movie? Overreaction or not?
That is not an overreaction at all. You know, the success of a movie, and I'm assuming he means box office success in addition to creative success. A good movie is a good movie. The Shawshank Redemption did not make its money back. I think it only made $24 million when it was released. It was considered a failure. However, now it's considered one of the greatest movies ever made. But what I think he's discussing is, because he brought up $1 billion, we're talking money in addition to creative. If the DC Universe kept making movies between 600 million and 950 million and kept the price below 200 million, it could very well be an incredible success. I don't think Clayface is going to be a $200 million movie. And if Clayface, say, I don't know what the budget is, but let's say it costs less. Let's say it costs, for the sake of argument, $125 million, and it made $750 million. Not bad. And if you did that and you were able to keep that return on investment in that ballpark, you've got a successful franchise.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you. This is not an overreaction. It's not an overreaction at all, because like you nailed it, Rob. Like, if all they want to do is these movies to be profitable, and they're off to a good start with Superman, and hopefully they can do that with Clayface. Like you said, they're going to keep the budget fairly modest on it. I mean, it's not going to be a $40 million movie, but they're going to keep the budget fairly modest. They can absolutely be successful. Now, where it becomes a little bit tricky is if your question had been modified a little bit, and if you asked the question, and if you said the DCU can be as successful as the Marvel Cinematic Universe without having a billion-dollar film. If that was your statement, if that was your hot take, I would call that a massive overreaction. Like, I'm sorry, you can't consider yourselves as successful as Marvel unless you're pinging off 6, 7, 8, 9 billion-dollar films. You just can't. But can you, as an overall cinematic universe, be considered successful without a billion-dollar film? Absolutely. 100% you can. So I don't believe that your statement there, the DC universe can be successful without a billion-dollar film, I do not believe that is an overreaction. All right. Let's move on to the second one here. This next one comes to us from Ty Marshall, who writes, Sam Raimi's Spider-Man is the greatest superhero trilogy ever made. It delivers a great message in each movie. First, responsibility. Second, movie choice. And third, movie forgiveness. All right, thanks for sending that in, Ty. This is a huge overreaction. It's a huge overreaction. Now, I say that as a big fan of Sam Raimi. I love the Spider-Man movies, where I love a couple of them, at any rate. Spider-Man 1 was really good. Spider-Man 2 is still in some people's conversations when you start talking about one of the greatest comic book movies ever made. A lot of people will still have that movie in that conversation. But Spider-Man 3 is also pretty much universally acknowledged as one of these things is not like the other. There was always Spider-Man 3. You can't get away from it. And as far as your point about, all three of them have a message, I don't care if your movie has a message. Your movie having a good message only matters if you execute on the message well. Just having a message does not make your movie good. Executing the message, communicating in such a way that is effective and resonates and all that kind of stuff, that's what becomes important. Listen, overall, I am a fan, absolutely, definitely, of Sam Raimi, and I am an overall fan of the Sam Raimi Spider-Man films, especially 1 and 2. But to call the Spider-Man trilogy the greatest superhero trilogy of all time, when we have Christopher Nolan's Dark Knight, when we have the original Captain America trilogy, when we have the Guardians of the Galaxy trilogy, when we have like a lot, I'm going to call that an overreaction. Rob, our viewers saying that Sam Raimi's Spider-Man trilogy is the greatest superhero trilogy we've ever had. Is that an overreaction or not?
I definitely think it's an overreaction, and I'm a huge Sam Raimi fan, and I don't want to be remiss in not mentioning he has a movie coming out at the end of this month. Send Help, which looks to be
I can't wait for, man.
I can't wait for it either. And so I would say, look, I like the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies. I do. And I think Spider-Man 2 is a banger. I think it's one of the great superhero films of all time. I think, unfortunately, that Spider-Man 3, because of mandates by the studio and what they wanted to get out of it, I think it was way too expensive. And I think Sam Raimi was forced to make a lot of decisions that were imposed upon him. And I think Spider-Man 3 is not great. Is not as great as we hoped it would be, and it's just not a great movie. So I can't go there and say it's the greatest superhero trilogy of all time. And when I watch it, I don't think it's nearly as entertaining as Captain America, the trilogy there is, or the Dark Knight trilogy is. It is in different ways, but that's not to take away from it. I still like all three of those movies, despite the fact that the third one's a little all over the place with dancing Tobey Maguire. But hey.
Rob, listen, here's the funny thing. I'm not even sure Sam Raimi's Spider-Man trilogy is the best Spider-Man trilogy. I mean, like, because right now you've got the John Watts trilogy with Homecoming, Far From Home, and No Way Home, which I think Spider-Man 2 is the best of all those movies, but they're consistently really good. And by the way, we're about to get a third Spider-Verse movie. And if it's on par with the other two Spider-Verse movies, I'm not even 100% sure that Sam Raimi's Spider-Man trilogy is the second best Spider-Man trilogy. It might be the third best Spider-Man trilogy. Yeah, so I again, it's all subjective, but I'm going to go with it is an overreaction to say Sam Raimi's Spider-Man trilogy is the greatest Spider-Man trilogy. All right. Let's get on to our next one here. And our third submission comes to us from Tanner Bushman, who writes, Rob, The Pit will be the next show to have a Best Drama Series win streak at the Emmys. The Pit will be the next show to have a dynasty, if you will, at the Emmys. Is that an overreaction or not?
I don't think so. I mean, a dynasty, I'd have to have that a more clear definition of what that means, but that's a pretty extraordinary show. And when you think about how they would have to make it, I mean, talk about verisimilitude and talk about characters. And I mean, that's probably the most edge of your seat medical show, consistently edge of your seat that I've ever seen. I mean, you know, I feel like I've run a marathon after I watch episodes of that show. And I think that is a very difficult thing to achieve. So dynasty could be. So I don't think it's an overreaction.
I'm going to agree with you. I don't think it's an overreaction. You know, last night I watched episode 1 of season 2 and it has not lost a beat, man.
Yeah.
Like it has not lost a beat. Now, look, it is January. It is really early in the television cycle. Who knows how good the other shows that are going to come out this year are going to be? Maybe they eclipse it. But I absolutely don't think it's unreasonable to think that maybe 3 out of the next 4 years could be The Pit winning best series. Or 3 out of the next 5 years, it could be The Pit winning best series. The quality of it is insane. And I am so over medical drama procedurals. I am so over them. And yet The Pit just drags you right into it and it does not let you go. And again, Anna and I were watching episode 1 of season 2 last night and it just ends and I'm like, no, please be more. But there wasn't. So I got to wait till next week for the next episode. So look, again, we got to see everything that comes out this year. It's not an absolute lock, but I don't think it's an overreaction to say this is the show that could be the next Sopranos, the next The Wire, the next Game of Thrones, in the sense that it kind of sets up its own little dynasty. I don't think it's an overreaction. All right, let's go on to the next one here then. And our fourth submission today gets sent in to us by Craig Palmacinio, I'm sure I'm mispronouncing that, who writes, with all the leaks coming out surrounding Doomsday, Marvel will have to move the date up to get ahead of all the widespread spoilers. With all the leaks coming out surrounding Doomsday, Marvel will have to move the date up to get ahead of all the widespread spoilers. This is an interesting question because it touches on a lot of things. First of all, a lot of the quote unquote leaks and reports you're seeing out there, I can tell you, and Rob can back this up, 100% fake, 100% false. A lot of the very popular ones that are kind of circulating right now, 100% not true. So there is that. Keep that in mind, that all these supposed leaks are people making stuff up and throwing it out there into the Reddit verse, and people pick up on it a lot. I'm not saying that all of them have been untrue, but a good number of the big popular ones that are floating around, absolutely not true. That said, I have already said that I am already aware of, Rob, and I know you are too, that the actual information and the actual plot of Doomsday we have seen ourselves that it is starting to disseminate behind the scenes, that we have people who are not going public with it, but we know of people who this is starting to spread around. And I've already made the contention that I think probably by June or July, I think the actual plot is actually going to get out. I think it's going to be out, and I think most people are going to, again, it's not the one or two that are floating around right now. It's not those, but I think by June or July, it probably will. So the question becomes, does that necessitate that Marvel moves up the release date of Avengers Doomsday? I'm going to say that's an overreaction. It doesn't. And I'll tell you why. I'm somebody who knows everything that happens in Doomsday. And you know what? It's only made me more excited.
Yeah.
It's only, and Robert, you're the same way. It has only made us more excited to see it. And I also want to give another example. Let's go back to Behold the Lighting on Tobey Maguire's dick sack. It got out that Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield were in that movie. By the way, the reports were already out a year before I ever actually shared those pictures. That being said, and did that take away anybody's excitement for going to see it? Did that information take away from the results of Spider-Man No Way Home? No, Spider-Man No Way Home became one of the highest grossing films in history. It nearly joined the $2 billion club. It didn't derail it at all. And so even if I'm right, and I might not be, but even if I'm right and everything about Doomsday actually comes out by the summer, I still don't think that necessitates Disney moving up the release date, because it's going to do nothing but build excitement for it. Anyway, so Rob, I'm going to call the hot take that Disney's going to be forced to move it up to combat leaks. I'm going to call that an overreaction. How do you feel about it?
100% an overreaction. I'll give you an example, John. I've read Project Hail Mary twice.
Yes!
The movie's coming out in March. I am deliriously excited for it. As a matter of fact, I think half of the movies that I love in my life were based on novels that I had read before I saw the movie. And no one's thinking to themselves, they're going to read the novel. They're not going to know. I would say this. People have to remember the only people that are actually really paying attention to leaks are us in this ecosystem. Most of the Gen Pop doesn't care. They don't care. And I would say this, now that I would dare say that like Patrick Stewart said in Extras, I can see everything. Now that I know that, this is Project Hail Mary and the Odyssey. I am more excited to see this movie now than I was before I knew, only because, and I am not a paid shill, but it's beyond bonkers and I'm beyond excited. Because if nothing else, I just want to see how they do it. I mean, the one thing I will say, and this is true of any spoiler, is, I wish I could go into a movie and not know what happened.
Sure. Yeah, 100%.
But I've never once, like, I'll tell you, one of my favorite screenplays, I've told the story a million times, was Seven. I'd read the script for Seven before anybody, 5 years before it got made. I couldn't wait to go see that movie. I'm like, when are they going to make that movie? For 5 years I waited. And then they finally made the movie and I got to go see it and I was blown away. And I knew what was going to happen at the end of that movie. It did not take away from my enjoyment of seeing it at all. And I loved Seven. I'd read the Shawshank Redemption, the story, Rita Hayworth and Shawshank Redemption, every year at Christmas. It came out in different seasons, which came out in 1982. So I read it for 12 years before I saw the movie. And I loved the movie because you want to see how are they going to, every single thing in a movie, when you see it brought to life, every single angle, every single effect, every single line of dialogue that's uttered, you might have read and know all of those things that are happening in a book or whatever, and you know what's happening, but to see it brought to life on screen almost has no bearing. You might not understand the story, but the Odyssey,
I was about to bring that. One of our viewers literally, I brought it up on screen a second ago because you were bringing up Project Hail Mary. The Odyssey is another great one. Like, anybody who wants to know the basic plot of the Odyssey, a lot of people in this country already know it. And if anybody wants to know it, it's right there. And obviously Christopher Nolan will be unique about it, but you can have it. Is that taking away anybody's excitement for the Odyssey? Is that forcing the Odyssey to move up its release date? No. So
they made a movie with Ralph Fiennes that told the same story that came out last year. Mm-hmm. It's like, okay, The Return.
And they kind of did with the Oh Brother Where Art Thou already anyway, too.
Yes, they did.
Anyway, so both Rob and I are going to come down on this one, that this one is an overreaction. All right, let's go on to our fifth submission here. And this one comes to us from Gaston Vasquez, who writes, by the end of her career, Emma Stone is going to be known as the second best actress, just behind Meryl Streep. Rob, the hot take here is by the end of her career, Emma Stone will be known as the second best actress with her career. Is that an overreaction or not?
Well, I think it's an overreaction to say that Meryl Streep is the best actress because that discounts a lot of, she's only been making movies since the late 70s, but she is one of the most incredible actresses who ever lived. But I don't think it's an overreaction. I think Emma Stone will be, maybe not the second best actress of all time because there's a pantheon of actresses. Like I think Bette Davis is an incredible actress. But she hasn't been seen in a movie in 40 plus years. So I don't think it's an overreaction, John. I think that Emma Stone has delivered time and time again some really timeless performances.
Yeah, again, it would be different if the statement was saying definitively, take it to the bank, it's a lock, Emma Stone is this. That would be different. But to saying that that's what she could be, guys, listen, she's only 37 years old. She's got 50 more years. And at 37, she has 4 Oscar nominations and 2 Oscars already sitting on her mantle. And she's, Rob, fair or unfair, she is at the status now that whatever she appears in, the instant talk is, oh, well, she'll be one of the contenders for Best Actress. It's just an assumption now. It's just assumed. Kind of like when Steven Spielberg is directing something or when Christopher Nolan's directing something, it's just assumed that if Emma Stone is going to be in something, she's already on paper a contender for Best Actress. Does that put her in the second position to the Street Monster with her 735 Academy Award nominations? Not right now. No, because you've got actresses out there like Olivia Colman right now. You've got actresses out there, with that type of pedigree. But at only 37 years old and already has 2 Oscars on her mantle, I'm going to say putting that up as a possibility that 40 years from now, when we look back on the career of Emma Stone, that she's going to be right up there in the discussion with the Street Monster and the Goats. I'm going to say it's not an overreaction, Rob. It's not an overreaction.
I agree.
All right. Let's then get on to our final, our last submission here today, sent in to us. And this one comes to us from our viewer, Kent Stanza. A little bit of a Seinfeld reference there, I believe. Avengers Doomsday, Rob, will bring about a Marvel renaissance. The hot take here is Avengers Doomsday will bring about a Marvel renaissance. Is that an overreaction or not an overreaction?
I don't think it is an overall reaction because I think that it's like, here's the thing. I love the MCU. I've loved the James Bond franchise. I love Star Trek. I love Star Wars overall. And not all of these franchises, I don't think any franchise has delivered banger after banger after banger the way we would expect. And no one has more movies in their franchise than the MCU does. And I think people want the MCU to succeed. And within the 4, 5, and 6 phases, we did get Spider-Man No Way Home, which made almost $2 million. We did get Deadpool and
$1 billion. Yeah.
$1 billion. And yeah, we did get Deadpool and Wolverine. And people could say that as nostalgia bait, but I don't think so because we want to see these characters. And what Marvel is doing, they tried to give us new characters, which was admirable. Like, you and I are Eternals fans. I loved Shang-Chi as you did. I even liked Black Widow. I just think it came too late. If it had come early on in phase 1, it might have been more highly regarded, but I thought, it also had problems. But still, I enjoy watching MCU movies. I like the characters. They made some big missteps in my mind, Thor, Love and Thunder. But watching Thunderbolts and Fantastic Four, they might not have reached the heights of Winter Soldier or Infinity War and Endgame, but they were very enjoyable. And I like those characters. But a renaissance, I think what Marvel now is doing is they're, like any good company does, they have some bad years, they pivot, they change things around, and they give their consumers what their consumers want. And I can unequivocally say that Avengers Doomsday, at least for me, is giving me an injection right into my cerebral cortex of exactly what I want. When I was reading Marvel event comics or DC event comics, like I told people I was dating this beautiful girl and I made her wait 30 minutes for me while I finished Crisis on Infinite Earths issue 7 where Supergirl got killed. That's the kind of excitement I'm having right now for Avengers Doomsday. I mean, it's off the charts. And I think because what's great about Doomsday is they've built in one other movie or maybe 2 other movies already. So I think that we're going to get at least a year or 2 of Marvel Renaissance because people are going to go effing bananas. Bananas.
Provided they execute. I mean, everything you and I know about it is all good in theory.
It is. It's all in the wrists.
Yeah.
Yes. It better.
I'm going to go with you in the sense, okay, let's assume it works out to be as good as we think it will. Listen, one of the things I've said on the show for years, Rob, and I stand by, it's an old sports euphemism, but it's true. Winning cures everything. And the bigger the win, the bigger the cure. It just cures everything. Look, I have been as critical as anybody of the Marvel Cinematic Universe since 2019. Because since Endgame, it is fair to say, and I think everybody would agree with this, I think everybody would at least agree with this statement. The MCU has been kind of hit and miss, and it's never been hit and miss before. Right. Through its first 3, all the way from Iron Man to Endgame, it was never hit and miss. It was maybe the odd drop, the odd one, but it was consistency. It was excellence after excellence after excellence. It hasn't been that way since Endgame. They've had some things that are excellent and some things that have been terrible. And we're just not used to an MCU being hit and miss, and that's exactly what it's been. But you come out, it's not just about the win cures everything. It's about the size of the win will equate to the size of the cure. We're talking about an Avengers movie. We're not, Shang-Chi was great, but Rob, it was Shang-Chi. It ain't the Avengers, right? No. And so you come out with an Avengers film on this level. And by the way, one of my criticisms of the MCU has been while they've needed to bring in new characters, they overdid it with new characters to the point that it kind of made the MCU feel unfamiliar. Now we're going into an Avengers movie and it's going to feel like home again. Because we've got Steve Rogers, because we have Thor, because we have a lot of, it's just going to feel like the MCU again, just on that. And then if it executes the way we suspect it's going to execute, and if it's as good as we suspect it will be, and if it crushes it with the audience the way we think it's going to crush it with the audience, I'm not going to say everything is 100% solved, but the whole perception, Rob, of what the MCU is and where it is going to be fundamentally, completely different from where it is right now. Right now, it's, the MCU, yeah, I look forward to it, but who knows if the movie's going to be any good. If this movie delivers on the level that we think it can, the whole perception changes. It'll be the MCU's back. That's what it'll be for everybody, I think. So I don't think what they're saying is an overreaction at all.
You know, one of the things I think that Marvel really did that was wrong. The thing that that the MCU started out doing is it made you believe that Iron Man, Thor, and Captain America could exist in the same universe. It took comic book characters and put them together in quote unquote, well, not the real world, but a universe that you could believe in. And the entirety of the MCU, they added the more fantastical as they went along, but they still made you believe in the MCU as a universe. They earned Guardians of the Galaxy. The problem with phases 4, 5, and 6 is they got rid of that credibility. They gave us big swings with Eternals, but that was more like a comic book. Thor, Love and Thunder was like what the average perception of the normal viewer thinks a comic book movie should do.
Yeah.
All of the credibility. I mean, they gave us Gore the God Butcher could have been an incredible character if we'd met him in phases 2 or 3. But by putting that character in Love and Thunder, there's nothing you believe. Everything in Love and Thunder is so goofy that they turned it into the kind of comic book movie you would have seen in the 90s. So they shattered that reality that they had so carefully built. And you can tell by these trailers that they've put out that they've gone back to making us believe, especially with the tone of the Thor and the X-Men trailers. I mean, Steve Rogers, you don't get to hear him speak, but you see that they are trying to once again bring back that this universe that these superheroes live in, you're going to believe in it once again. We took that verisimilitude, we took that belief away from you, but you can see, and I think it's what they've done is, I think, a lot smarter than what a lot of people are giving them credit for. They're telling us that universe that we made you believe in is back. And even Deadpool and Wolverine, which I wasn't the biggest fan of, was goofy because it could be. It didn't have to exist in the universe. But now with Steve Rogers and with Thor and with the X-Men, and now if that Wakanda trailer is real, they're bringing the tone back that made the MCU successful. And I think it's going to work.
All right, guys. And that will wrap up today's session of Overreaction. Hey, guys, keep your eyes on the YouTube channel for when we put out a call for your hot take submissions, and maybe you'll see your hot take on our next Overreaction. All right. With that down, guys, let's move on to this, shall we? You know, we've been talking about Sebastian Stan because, of course, the reports came out that it's been confirmed by the major outlets that Sebastian Stan is probably joining the Batman 2. Then we talked a little bit the other day about some of the characters that Sebastian Stan could, in fact, be playing when he appears in the Batman 2. Well, today, there's a new level. And that new level is supposedly taking out any uncertainty because reports are going around that it has now been, here's the most overused C word in the universe, confirmed. It has been confirmed, says certain reports, that Sebastian Stan is going to be playing Two-Face. Now, what is the source of this? Well, it doesn't get more reliable. It's not coming directly from James Gunn, and it's not coming directly from Matt Reeves, but Rob, it's coming from the next most reliable source. Sebastian Stan's stylist. Yes, Sebastian Stan's stylist, Michael Fisher, posted a photo on his Instagram seemingly confirming that Sebastian Stan is Harvey Dent, a.k.a. Two-Face. There he is. It's official. The stylist says so. All right. There are a couple of things that should be mentioned here. Number one, is it possible that Sebastian Stan is actually playing Two-Face? Well, absolutely. Rob, yesterday, you and I talked on this show about the potentials, and one of the guys near the top of the list of that he could play is definitely Harvey Dent, Two-Face. Absolutely. It could be 100%. But there are two big grains of salt that I think everybody needs to take with this particular story and these social media posts that now some outlets are running with that Sebastian Stan's going to be Two-Face. Number one, the stylist in question never actually said that Sebastian Stan was going to be Two-Face.
Right.
All right. He's putting up pictures. Second thing is that, do you think that the stylist was dumb enough to think they can actually share who Sebastian Stan was going to be, or that the stylist would even know? Because if he is Sebastian Stan's stylist, which I have no reason to believe that he's not, but if Sebastian Stan shared with him that he was going to be Two-Face, do you think he's going to be Sebastian Stan's stylist anymore if he then got online and started sharing that he was Two-Face? But Rob, most importantly, I want us to go back in time a little bit. Let's travel back, a year or two. Let's go back to December 2024. Because you might remember this. When a report came out that Charlie Cox was going to be in Avengers Doomsday, and the reason we know is because his trainer, remember this? His trainer got on social media where Charlie Cox and his wife trained, and the trainer put up this social media post that said, "It's been a great time working with Charlie Cox as he trains for the next Avengers movie." And because his trainer wrote that, everybody lost their minds. It's like, it's confirmed Charlie Cox is in Avengers Doomsday. Well, if you guys remember, shortly after that, Charlie Cox had to get online and clarify, no. He just misspoke. I'm training for another season of Daredevil. I was in training for Daredevil Born Again. And he had to come out and go, 100% guarantee you that is not what he looked right, all that kind of stuff. And it came out. This situation, Rob, is so eerily similar to that one where, oh my God, his styles. Again, I am not saying here that take it to the bank, Sebastian Stan's not going to be Two-Face. I think it is a possibility that he's going to be Two-Face. But this whole idea that it's now confirmed because Sebastian Stan's brother's, sister's, cousin's former roommate put up a picture of Sebastian Stan as Two-Face. By the way, regardless of how good that picture is, I do like that image. That's pretty cool.
I do too.
It in no way is confirmation that he's going to be Two-Face. Anyway, Rob, you saw this whole thing. What are your thoughts on it?
Well, again, I mean, look, in this day and age, if somebody, let's say I'm an actor, and if I was going up for a part, like I have friends, I have Tom Jr. Jackson, who's a moderator on my channel, makes Funko Pops of me in all different kinds of guises, as superhero characters, as whatever. So with the technology that you have, it's fun to play with. What would it look like if you played this character? What would it look like? I'm sure that somebody could say, it's just what happens. People, wouldn't it be cool if you were Two-Face? Obviously, that's the Tommy Lee Jones, the more the purpley, Two-Face. It's not necessarily the Aaron Eckhart, more realistic Two-Face. So that doesn't mean anything to me. And it's like, it's just, I think somebody did it for fun. Like, okay, put it up. Maybe if he's Two-Face. I mean, how many fan films or I mean, people now are making they're making fake bootleg trailers for Doomsday.
Yeah.
So I don't think you can ever accept anything as an indication of fact. And I also I don't necessarily think they would use Two-Face. I think one of the things that Matt Reeves is trying to do is stay away from what's been done before. But then again, they did use Penguin and Catwoman in ways we hadn't seen them before.
Well, but to your point, just to back up what you're saying here, don't forget, recently Matt Reeves, or not long ago, I should say, Matt Reeves said, it came out that the villain is going to be, I believe it was Matt Reeves that said the villain is going to be one that we haven't really had an iteration of on screen before.
Yeah.
But again, that doesn't necessarily exclude that he could be playing Two-Face, because Two-Face, Harvey Dent, may not be the villain of this film. So, totally. I mean, that kind of keeps that door open just a little bit, I would think.
100%.
All right, guys. Question is for you. What do you think about this? I just think it's important for everybody to keep in mind when they start seeing these headlines, both on some outlets and on social media, saying it's confirmed he's playing Harvey Dent, to actually have some of the information here. It's his stylist, who never actually said he's playing Harvey Dent. Why would his stylist share that? And the fact that we had a similar situation, an almost identical situation to this just about a little over a year ago with Charlie Cox that clearly turned out to not be true. Could it be Dent? It's still possible, but I would just take this report that's going around with a giant grain of salt. However you guys feel about it, jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys, with that down, let's move on to this. Clearly, one of the biggest topics of conversation in the world of movies over the past, well, we're going on 6 years now, has been number one, Blade, and number two, where the hell is it? Because we all remember back in 2019 when Kevin Feige came on stage at Comic-Con and said, I got one more thing for you. Ladies and gentlemen, Mahershala Ali. And Mahershala Ali came out and they said, this is our new Blade. We're making a Blade movie, everybody. That was 6 years ago. We're getting on to 6 years. Since that happened, still no Blade. And many people online, understandably, including myself, have begun to speculate that I don't really know if we're going to get this Blade movie anymore. But Kevin Feige has insisted that they are still going to make a Blade movie. As a matter of fact, Rob, not long ago, he made the comments that we've had multiple, 4 different scripts being written for them. 3 out of the 4 were set in another time period, like in the past. Of course, we know that they reused some of the costumes they were going to use for a Blade movie set in the 20s, and they used some of those costumes for Sinners. But Kevin Feige said, we've now settled on modern time. Well, a new story is going around, running all over the place, that is suggesting that the Blade movie has now been canceled and that they are instead going to just have Blade as one of the characters in a Midnight Suns movie. And this is going everywhere. As a matter of fact, I was talking the other day about the fact that every morning I feel like at least 3 times a week when I wake up, my message box is filled with a bunch of people asking, John, did you hear about this? Today was that day. Today was everybody saying, John, did you hear it? They've canceled the Blade movie. They canceled the Blade movie. But time to do a little bit of a fact check. Have they actually canceled the Blade movie? The answer right now is no. So where is this all coming from? Well, here's where this is coming from. It's coming from friend of the show. He's been on our show a number of times. Good guy, Jeff Snyder. And I want you to hear very clearly what Jeff Snyder said. Okay. Now, this is coming to us from one of my favorite websites, Good Canadian Kids, Joe Blow, who wrote the following. The rumor that the Blade solo movie has been scrapped and replaced by the Midnight Suns movie comes from industry scooper Jeff Snyder of The Insider, who spoke about the possibility on the latest episode of his podcast, The Hot Mic, that he does with our friend John Roca. Snyder said, Blade is dead. It's a rumor. I'm hearing Blade is dead and that it's a Midnight Suns movie. He will not be introduced in a solo movie. He'll be introduced in Midnight Suns. As co-host John Roca said, that's one way to get around the issue they've had with trying to figure out a story for Blade. If you just put him in another movie, you don't have to struggle with his solo story anymore. Snyder added, I think it's just gotten to the point where, I don't think you're going to get your own movie. We can't have a 66-year-old Mahershala Ali, who is not 60 yet, by the way, Ali fronting your new comic book movies. So I think it's going to be Midnight Suns. All right. First of all, I want to point out that Jeff has broken some of the bigger scoops, Rob, that we've had in the movie world over the last number of years. But Jeff will also be the first one to tell you that some of his scoops that he's broken have not turned out to be whatever. That happens. But let me advocate for Jeff here for a second. I want to point out something very clearly. Jeff did not come out and say, I can confirm for you guys, this is my official report. Rob, he didn't come out and say, I can confirm, I have learned exclusively that the Blade movie has been canceled. Jeff was very direct. He was very clear when he said himself, it's a rumor. I've heard a rumor. He didn't say, I've talked to Kevin Feige and Kevin Feige has established for me that Blade is canceled. Jeff was on a podcast and said, I've heard a rumor that they're canceling this, and I think that's the way to go. That is a big difference from when, I think Jeff was the first one to break. Correct me if I'm wrong, Rob, but I think Jeff was the first one to break that Harrison Ford was going to be in Captain America: Brave New World. I think he was the guy to break that story. I mean, when he broke that story, it was, I can confirm, I have exclusively learned. It was the language of, this is a report I'm giving you. This is not that. This is Jeff being very upfront and saying, I've heard a rumor that this is happening. And listen, the thing about this is that it does coincide with things I've said. I've said for a while that I've kind of stopped believing that the Blade movie is actually going to happen. I've been saying that for a while. But it is important to keep in mind that Kevin Feige has stayed consistent. He said, nope, we are still doing this. We've now moved from an old time period to a modern time set movie. We are still working on this. We're still going to make it happen. So look, do I believe that the Blade movie is still happening? I'm still iffy about it. I really am. But I think everybody needs to take this thing going around with a grain of salt that Jeff did not come out and state this as a fact. He said, I've heard this. This is a rumor. He directly said, this is a rumor. And I think just everybody, because Rob, honestly, if you remember the rumor of them scrapping Blade and doing a Midnight Suns movie is one we talked about like 3 years ago. Like right. This isn't new. Yeah. This is a rumor that's been around for years that they were going to do that. And I want to throw this out there too, Rob. I just want to throw this out there. If you're Marvel, why would you do a Midnight Suns movie? You wouldn't. You just wouldn't. I understand for some of the hardcore core geek circles who are really into this stuff, and God bless, this would be a very exciting thing. But for your wider general audience, where does a Midnight Suns fit in right now with all these characters nobody cares about or knows about, when you've got Blade that even many people in the general movie-going audience are very, very excited about? So, I mean, I don't know, but that's all speculation. That's just me speculating. That's not me saying anything definitive. I'm just, as a fan, kind of guessing. But anyway, Rob, you saw this report. What do you make of it? And where do you think right now Blade actually stands? How do you see this?
Look, I want to build on what you said. I don't think a Blade movie is currently in the cards at Marvel. And I'll tell you why. I mean, we know that we're coming to the end of the multiverse. We know that they're making a Secret Wars movie that is based on Hickman's 2015 Secret Wars series. We know this. And if you look at what happens in that series and the lead up to that series, incursions, all these things that happened, and then Doctor Doom shows up, uses his powers, creates one universe from the scraps of the remaining multiverse and creates Battleworld. And then after that story is over, the MCU is rebooted and sort of starts anew with no multiverse. Clearly, that's what Marvel is doing. So when we get into whatever iteration the Marvel Cinematic Universe looks like, and remember, this isn't going to happen till the end of 2027. They have pretty much said that the next thing that they're going to focus on is the X-Men. Well, you could make 30 movies with different X-Men characters and never circle around back to Blade. I think one of the problems with Blade is Blade comes not just with baggage. You have to explain an entire vampire culture. What is the Daywalker going to do without a previously existing society of vampires? They haven't established that in the MCU. So that's a huge thing to try and work into a universe that's existed with over 40 motion pictures now. I think that's been the sticking point. Where have the vampires been? So I don't think that if they were going to make a Blade movie, they would even get a Blade movie off the ground for at least 3 or 4 years. And then it's 2 years beyond that. So I don't think it really fits into their plans anymore. And they wanted to. I mean, but I just don't think it's going to happen because they're going to go right out of Secret Wars, and we know that they've already have a director on X-Men. That's an active development, and that's probably going to be the new way that they're going to go. And I don't know if they can make those two things work. I mean, the X-Men did meet Dracula, after all, with a great Bill Sienkiewicz cover. What was that, X-Men Annual 3 or Uncanny Annual, something like that? Cool red cover. And I would love to see that, but I don't think it's going to work in the MCU. I don't want to see the X-Men meet Dracula. Even though it happened in the comics, I don't want to see it.
And the question is, does the general movie-going audience, because we'll bring up who's the lineup of the Midnight Suns going to be? Are you going to have Ghost Rider? Okay, sorry. The general audience doesn't like Ghost Rider because they didn't go to see his movies before. They were crappy, yeah, granted, but they didn't even go to see it to give it a shot.
It's more than time for the Midnight Suns.
Yeah, you're gonna put Morbius in the Midnight Suns, Swamp Thing. No, that's a different. Not Swamp Thing. Man Thing. Thank you, Man Thing.
By Night.
Possibility. Like some people understandably will say, well, John, they did Guardians of the Galaxy. Yeah, Guardians of the Galaxy was a real exception with a bunch of characters that nobody knew about at all that they firmly believed the audience would love. They believe the audience doesn't know Groot, but they'll love Groot. The audience doesn't know Rocket Raccoon, but we believe if we do him the way we're going to do him, people will love Rocket Raccoon. I just don't see the general movie-going audience getting on board for Midnight Suns. Now, I could have my mind changed though, Rob, if you do a Blade movie, and then if at somewhere down the line they do decide to take a crack at doing a pure reboot of Johnny Blaze and Ghost Rider, and they do that, and then they try to do a Midnight Suns after that, there could be a roadmap to do that. But to cancel a Blade movie to do a Midnight Suns when, I mean, the general movie-going audience actively doesn't like a number of the characters in them, I don't think that's the play for them to do. Again, I'm not saying it's not happening. I'm saying from me as just a pure speculation fan point of view, it just doesn't make sense to me.
I also think that the MCU has realized that, look, the thing about Guardians of the Galaxy was it was either going to work or it wasn't going to work. And James Gunn was the guy. They had an auteur who wanted to do this film and was able to do it, had a way in. And they were right because there's a trilogy of those movies and everybody, the trilogy did very, very well. And they incorporated those characters into Avengers Infinity War, Avengers Endgame. But I don't see, like, after that, I don't necessarily think that Blade or vampires belong in the MCU unless they figure out a way, the way they called mutants because they didn't have the rights, miracles, when they first showed up. Maybe they could somehow find a backdoor way to introduce vampirism into the X-Men. I could see that somehow, that they could call vampirism a mutation, because that's not unprecedented in terms of the X-Men comics, and maybe go in that way. But I just think that the problem with vampires is there's a million other vampire movies that aren't in the MCU. So how do you make a Blade movie that differentiates itself from, say, Sinners? I mean, the idea that Ruth Carter was the costume designer on Blade, and they allowed her to take many of her costumes that she designed for Blade and use them in Sinners. They allowed that to happen. So it's like, I just don't know if a vampire or a vampire subset of the MCU is even going to work.
You know what?
I think that's the problem they've had.
I would have agreed with you more on that prior to WandaVision and Agatha. Yep. And like, Agatha was surprisingly good. I mean, I was kind of surprised by how much I liked Agatha. But I mean, when they introduced straight up witchcraft, like Salem level witchcraft.
Yeah. Yep.
Then, they were able to successfully introduce the idea of, under the surface of this world we know, there has been this. We just haven't really known about it. I think there's a way if they've cracked that code, I think they can crack the code for vampires as well. Maybe.
I would say you have the Sorcerer Supreme and you had Wanda Maximoff to establish that, and Dormammu, and that they had a way to get into Agatha that made you believe, because you went from Wanda to Strange to Agatha to witches and the Darkhold and all that. So that worked. But vampires, I think, and they look, the voice of Mahershala Ali is at the end of Eternals, and that blade, the actual, literally the blade, had other ramifications in the MCU. So I don't disagree that it could be done. It certainly can be done. I just don't think it's in the cards for the next half decade. I just don't. I don't think
listen, and I have my doubts at this point that it's going to happen at all. I mean, I really do. But again, I would just say that this story running around is, when you go to the root of it, it's based on one guy, our friend Jeff, literally saying, I heard a rumor, and people are building that into this story. And I think it's fun talking about, but I just think we need to keep in mind what this is, what the actual foundation of this is. And the actual foundation is a guy on a podcast said he heard a rumor. And I just, go ahead.
And where they're going. I mean, we have, in terms of where the MCU is now, we have Wonder Man about to drop, which I can't wait to see. We have Spider-Man Brand New Day, and we don't know the disposition of those characters. We have Avengers Doomsday, and we have Secret Wars. Those are the things we know. We know that X-Men has a director. So they haven't announced, I mean, they've been trying to make a Blade movie, but in terms of what they're focusing on now, I mean, are we going to get a third Doctor Strange movie? Are we going to get a second Thunderbolts movie? Are we going to get a second Fantastic Four movie? They have other things that are much more viable than a Blade film that they haven't been able to get made in half a decade. And then you have to ask yourself, where are we going to be at the end of 2027? So unless they start filming something in the interim, which they could do, but I think we know at the end of Secret Wars, the universe is being rebooted. What that looks like, I have no idea. I really don't. All I know is the Hickman storyline and what happened there. And it is called Secret Wars. I mean, Age of Ultron was not like the comic Age of Ultron, but that's all we know. And maybe that's a place where they can bring in vampires, but that's probably not going to happen until 2028, 29, 30.
We will see, guys. The question is for you. The gift that keeps on giving for going on 6 years now. Where the hell is the Blade movie? And is it even still coming? Kevin Feige is still insisting it's happening. They're going to do it, and they've changed time frames. But people like me have my doubts, and people like you and people like our friend Jeff are hearing rumors that maybe they're not. I don't know. Whatever you guys think about all this right now, jump down to the comments section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, it's time for us to move into the most important part of our show, which is, of course, taking your live questions. But before we do, we got to do two things. First, we got to bid good afternoon and good week, as a matter of fact, to our friend, writer, director, producer, Robert Meyer Burnett. Great job, as always, my friend. We'll talk to you on Monday.
Sir. Absolutely.
And the other thing we have to do right now is thank the sponsor of today's episode of the John Campea Show, our friends at PrizePicks. Guys, we want to thank the sponsor of today's episode, PrizePicks. Look, you and I make decisions every day, but on PrizePicks, being right actually means you win. And with football back, there is no better time to get in on the action. You guys know I've been using PrizePicks for a while now, and it's honestly the most fun I've had engaging with the new football season already. For example, this weekend, I had Josh Allen throwing for more than 270 passing yards, and Baker Mayfield having more than 2.5 passing touchdowns, and boom, I won on both. Building your lineups on PrizePicks is fast, simple, and honestly extremely fun. All you have to do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player projections, and if you're right, you win. What's even better is that PrizePicks invented the flex play, which means you can still win even if one of your picks doesn't hit. Plus, they've even got this thing called injury reboots, so if a player goes down in the first half, it won't count against you. And PrizePicks operates in more than 40 states, including California, Texas, and Georgia. So download the app today and use code CAMPEA to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CAMPEA to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks. It's good to be right. And thank you to our friends at PrizePicks for sponsoring today's episode of the John Campea Show. All right, guys, with that down, let's get on to the important stuff. Your live comments and questions, shall we? And just so you know, I had already turned off super chats about 20 minutes ago because we had enough come in. So if you're trying to send one in now, my apologies, but don't worry, they'll be back on again on Monday. All right, let's get to it here, shall we? And we are going to start off here. First of all, I got to see if I can get my camera turned back on. Can I? I hope I can. Give me a second here. That's not my camera. Oh, that is a camera, but that's not the camera. Where are we here? We should be here. There we go. Okay, there's the camera. We're back. Sorry, on Fridays, Jonathan's not in, so I'm doing all the technical stuff by myself. All right. First question we've got here comes to us from EJ Tan, who writes, did you guys hear, let me see if I can just get this focused up a bit because I think some of it's going off the edge of the screen. Yes, give me a second here. There we go. Did you guys hear that Kathryn Hahn is in talks to play Mother Gothel for the live action version of Tangled? Man, talk about hitting a home run. You know what the funny thing is? Yesterday on the show, I think, and this is before the report came out, one of our viewers wrote in and said, man, because we were talking about the casting in Tangled yesterday, and somebody wrote and said, man, if they don't get Kathryn Hahn to play the mother in Tangled, that's a big missed opportunity. And I said, well, I mean, it could be a lot of different actresses, but yeah, man, Kathryn Hahn's awesome. Kathryn Hahn's great. If they announced her, that would be awesome. And then like literally hours later, I saw the headlines that she's now in talks to actually play the role. That would be amazing. I think she will be great in it. I think she'll be absolutely fantastic in it. All right. Next up, we got Richard, who writes, what does the WB/Netflix merger mean for future WB physical media releases? Do you think it will be scaled back? Well, I mean, look, Rob, who is the biggest advocate in the world for physical media, will be the first person to tell you. Every year we're seeing physical media being scaled back. Physical media is being scaled back already, like with or without the Warner Brothers and WB merger. But yes, I do think for people who are fans of physical media, Netflix getting Warner Brothers will only hasten the already declining reality of physical media. Because again, Netflix has no interest in physical media. And while they're going to let Warner Brothers operate independently, I think they're going to put a priority on taking Warner Brothers content after it's done its theatrical runs and putting it into Netflix. So listen, physical media is already scaling back. But I do think that the Netflix thing, the one unfortunate thing for physical media fans is the Netflix merger, I think, would hasten that decline. I could be wrong, but that's kind of my guess. All right. Thanks for that, Richard. Next up, Zach Walters writes, over or under 40% that Michael will have a minimum of $165 million opening weekend. You know what? You set the number low. You set the number low at 40%. Now, I think Michael's going to be $1 billion film. I don't know how big it will open, though. I think it'll have legs. But because you set the number as low as 40%, I'll say over. I'll take the over. I would say maybe it's got like a 55-60% chance of hitting 165 million or more. So you set the line at 40. I'll take the over on that. I'll go over 40%. Thanks, Zach. Next up, Al writes, I do movie marathons where I watch one movie from a franchise/studio every month. Nice. Any recommendations? I'm planning on John Wick, Shrek, and Expendables. Do I have any movie recommendations? From any studio, I don't know. Star Wars, Lord of the Rings, Bridge on the River Kwai, Lawrence of Arabia, Ben-Hur, Shawshank Redemption. I mean, really, you're going to have to be a little bit more specific in narrowing down what you're specifically looking for a recommendation. But there's a bunch of one. Hey, even Daniel Kinder in the live chat says to go Man of Steel. Definitely Man of Steel. Go for that. All right. Thanks, Al. Next up, Matan Velinsky writes, the head of Larian said that a Switch 2 port of Baldur's Gate 3 isn't coming due to a decision not up to them. Hasbro's refusing free money and is mismanaged. Chris Cox, real name, needs to go. I don't know, to be honest with you. Listen, Baldur's Gate 3. Look, I love the Nintendo Switch too. Ann and I bought it the day it came out. We're big fans of the Switch. We're big fans of the Switch 2. But it's for different, the Switch 2 is for different types of games than, say, what I play on the PlayStation. And honestly, now going into its third year of its life cycle, is it really that big of a deal whether or not Baldur's Gate plays on the Nintendo Switch? I mean, it's one you can play on your computer. It's one you can play on any of the other things. So honestly, would it be neat to have Baldur's Gate 3, which I think is the greatest video game of all time, by the way? Would it be neat to have it on my Switch too? I guess it would be neat, but I prefer playing it on my computer. And if I really wanted to, I could play it on my PlayStation. And it's a years old game now. So I'll be honest with you, Matan, I don't think it's that big of a deal. I really don't. Plus, I don't know if the technical requirements would be met for it anyway, because Nintendo Switch is different on a different scale technology-wise than like the Xbox or the PlayStation. So I don't think it's a big deal, to be honest with you. All right. Next up, Nerdy Beard Man writes, John, I enjoy about 90% of what you enjoy, so I was wondering if you have any great sitcom recommendations, and do you also find this genre lacking lately? 100% sitcoms desperately need a good resurgence, and not just by numbers. I mean, good sitcoms. Because we went through a few years where we had some great ones out there. Like, obviously, you're talking about The Office. Parks and Rec is one of my all-time favorites. Modern Family is one of the best written sitcoms ever. But it's been a while since we've had a really good sitcom. Like, there's even that one right now with Tim Allen and, help me out, with the actress from Thor and Two Broke Girls. Why am I freezing on her name? I love her and I'm freezing on her name. Help me out in the live chat there. The show is called Shifting Gears with Kat Dennings. Yes. So Daniel points out Shifting Gears and Kat Dennings. Okay. I love Tim Allen. I love Kat Denning. So I was excited to check it out. It's not funny. It's not funny. I mean, the best sitcoms we've had in the last 10 years are now both years old, and they both come out of Canada. I mean, I think the best sitcoms we've had probably in the last 10 years are Schitt's Creek and Kim's Convenience. They're both Canadian. I think those are the best ones. But you're right. I think we desperately need a better, more funny landscape. That's the good exception. Keaton just put out Abbott Elementary. Abbott Elementary is the exception right now. Abbott Elementary is a really, really good sitcom. But I think there's just not as many good ones as there used to be right now. I would love to see a little bit of a resurgence there. All right. Next up, we've got Dr. Doom, who writes, Hey, John, as my name suggests, I'm a big Dr. Doom fan. Do you think the script does his character justice, especially compared to Thanos? It's difficult to give the answer I want to give to this question without giving anything away. Because I could give you a yes or no answer, but that answer would be misleading to you unless I gave you the actual context of the answer, but I can't give you the context of the answer without revealing too much about the film itself. So I can't answer that. All I will say is that I think people, if they execute, I think people are going to be very happy with this movie. I think people are going to be very, very happy with this movie. And I can't say anything else at this point, but hopefully that helped a little bit. All right. Next up, Frank writes, Good day, John. Good day, Frank. Because of Sinners, I watched Fruitvale Station. Good on you, man. With my family, and we all cried. Michael B. Jordan's performance was next level. Listen, it's the thing where we were saying, like, when Black Panther came out, right? Everybody's like, oh my God, this guy, Ryan Coogler and Michael B. Jordan. We're like, Fruitvale Station, guys. Fruitvale Station. That was the movie that put, in a very literal way, it's the movie that put Ryan Coogler on the map, I think, even though a lot of people didn't see it. But that's the one that people in film fan circles were like, oh my God, that, like, this Fruitvale Station movie is incredible and it's so well directed. But I also think it's the movie that changed perception of Michael B. Jordan, of, like, not just a guy who could be a cool movie star, but a guy who is a legit thespian, man, like a legit actor. And I am constantly trying to encourage people to go back and watch Fruitvale Station. I'm glad that you did, and I'm glad you enjoyed it, man. All right. Next up, John just sends in $5 to be supportive. Thank you, John. I appreciate that, man, very much. He then sends in another $2 badge. Thank you so much for that, John. I appreciate it, dude. All right. Donnie the Couch writes, hey, John, love the show. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Do you think no news is good news for the Paradise Lost and Waller projects for DC Studios? I think the answer is neither. I think no news is no news. Look, James Gunn has been very, very clear. We're not giving any release dates. We're not announcing any of that stuff until we have certain projects exactly where we want them. Once we have them exactly where we want them, then we will make big announcements. Then we will do all this kind of stuff. You know, that's what we'll do. We're not going to make the same mistake that Kevin Feige did. And everybody knows I love Kevin Feige. But we're not going to make the same mistake that Kevin made when he walked onto a stage, announced Blade, and put out release dates when they didn't even know if they had a script that they liked. James Gunn's not going to do that. So honestly, for now, I don't think it's good news. I don't think it's bad news. I just think with the DCU right now, no news is just no news. So we'll see what happens. All right. Next up, S. Macaulay writes, the Batman 2 will have Joker, Two-Face, and Sophia Falcone. Will they adopt the Long Halloween? Nobody said the Batman 2 is going to have Joker. Nobody said the Joker is going to have Two-Face. And nobody said that Batman 2 is going to have Sophia Falcone. All of those are possibilities. All of those are possibilities. And them adapting the Long Halloween is absolutely one that's been high on a lot of fans' lists. But again, there's a lot of people, there's a lot of movement and support for them doing like the Court of Owls, Hush, Long Halloween, all that kind of stuff. But just to be clear, nobody officially has said that the Joker is going to be in there. Nobody has said Two-Face is going to be in there, and nobody said Sophia Falcone is going to be in there. They all could be. They all could, but we'll have to wait and see. We'll just wait and see how that all transpires. Thanks for that, S. Appreciate it, man. Next up, Andino writes, over under 20% that Scarlet Wars ends with Spider-Man. Secret Wars. Over under 20% that Secret Wars ends with Spider-Man giving Molecule Man or equivalent character a cheeseburger. Of course, one of the great things about the Secret Wars comic is in the midst of a lot of all this heaviness and the seriousness and huge stakes and mortal decisions being made, all that kind of stuff, there's this great moment in the story where it's just Molecule Man's like, is that cheese? Yeah. And Spider-Man just had been carrying around this cheeseburger in his pocket. And this great personal breakthrough they have is over a cheeseburger. And I think that's amazing. It's one of my favorite parts of the entire Secret Wars storyline. Now, again, I don't think Molecule Man, who, if you know the Secret Wars story, is a very, very MacGuffin character in the Secret Wars storyline, right? Very MacGuffin character. I think his role is going to kind of be played by another character, whether that character is Franklin Richards, whether that character is Loki, whether that character is Sentinel, whether that character is, I don't know, name somebody else, whether that character is Wanda, I don't know. I would think, as somebody who knows nothing about the Secret Wars movie, but I would think one way or the other, it would be a really missed opportunity and a shame. It would be a shame if Kevin Feige and the Russo brothers didn't find a way to work in that cheeseburger thing. I think they should. I think even it may not be on the nose the way it's done in the comics, but even something that alludes to it or is a callback to it, I think it would be a shame if they didn't do it. So I think they will. I'm going to go over 20% that they do. All right. Good question, Andino. All right. Next up, M40 sends in what equates to be about a $20 super chat. Thank you, M40. Appreciate that, man. And M40 writes, does Doomsday make justice of Loki's ability to use magic? He only used a minimal amount of magic in the MCU, unlike in the comics. Maybe you can answer this because you have already told us that he gets justice power-wise. I've never said that. I don't know what you're talking about. I've never said that. All right. I'll say this. Loki is a very important figure in Doomsday as far as being responsible for the rolling ball of the main narrative getting going. But I'll also say that Loki isn't as prevalent in this movie as some people think he's going to be. So his actions are very important to getting the story going. But he's not quite as front and center in this movie as a lot of people think he's going to be. I will leave. And as far as does his power, I'm not going to say that because I don't want to give any hints as to what it is he does or doesn't do in the movie. So I'll just kind of leave it at that. But I'll just say he's an important figure. He's an important figure. All right. Next up, we've got, thanks for sending that in, M4. And 4T. All right. Apollo writes, Bears versus Patriots Super Bowl, bear down Chi-Town. If you are a Chicago Bears fan, it is a good time to be a Bears fan, man, because they're just getting started. This is not their year. I'll just tell you this right. I do think they can beat the Packers, but the Bears are not going to the Super Bowl. But that's okay. They have a very bright future. Their USC quarterback, Caleb, is finally starting to show the potential that he's had. This defense is coming together. Listen, I think this is going to be an exciting team to watch in the next couple of years. This is not their year, but they have years coming. I think if they manage themselves well, they have years coming. All right, next up. Sora fan sends in a $20 super chat. Thank you so much, Sora, for supporting us in that level, man. And Sora fan writes, just got back from my trip to Florida and Epic Universe. All I have to say is it lives up to the name. I just love the interactiveness in the Super Nintendo world and the live show from Burke. Donkey Kong Ryan was definitely worth the hype. Dude, I agree with you on every level. You know, we did our movie meetup tour. And by the way, no promises. I'm just going to kind of say, looking at maybe doing Houston. We're considering maybe doing Houston soon. I can't promise anything, but I'm just saying we're starting to have some discussions about it. Anyway, that all said, since we did a movie meetup in Orlando, we went to Epic Universe, and it was my first time ever there. I was so amazed by it. I was absolutely floored by it. I thought it was utterly fantastic. That live How to Train Your Dragon show was great, especially when Toothless comes flying over the audience and everything. The Donkey Kong ride was wonderful. Nintendo World was great. Burke was great. The Movie Monsters area was great. I just had a blast. I had an absolute blast at it. I'm glad you did too. And I will look forward to going back to visiting Epic Universe again, hopefully sometime in the near future. All right. Thanks again for that, Sora. Next up, Josh Lasorda writes, greetings again from the AMC South Barrington, which I believe we did one of our movie meetups at there just outside of Chicago. What are the chances we get more Dune sequels after part 3 without Denis? Well, you know, we do have that Dune Sisterhood. That's coming back for season 2. I didn't love the season. I didn't mind season 1. I didn't mind it. I didn't love it though. We'll see where they go with season 2. I don't know, man, because look, you're talking to a guy that, to me, after the first Dune book, and there are like 4,825 Dune books, they all get progressively worse. Like, they all get progressively worse. But, you know, if Dune 3 wins Oscars, and if it makes $1 billion, which I don't think it will, the studio will absolutely try to find ways to do it. I think it's unlikely, though. I think it's unlikely. I don't think we're getting any more Dune movies after Dune 3. Again, success changes things. If it wins Oscars and it makes like close to $1 billion, there's absolutely going to be some suits over there. They're going to be like, we got to figure out a way to do another Dune one, even without Denis. Might happen. But if I had to guess, and it's just a guess, my guess is that we're not going to get another Dune movie after Dune 3 until they reboot it. But that's my guess at any rate. Could be wrong, but that's my guess. All right. Next up. Where are we at here? Mozart just sends in a super chat badge to be supportive. Thank you, Mozart. Appreciate that, man, very much. All right. Next one comes to us from Keaton Haybeck, who writes, Secret Life of Walter Mitty. I really like that movie. Is, in my opinion, the most underrated film ever. The Ben Stiller one. I don't agree with you. I don't agree, but that's the beautiful thing about films. They all hit us differently. We all have a different opinions of. So that's great that it is that for you. I really like the movie. To me, honestly, 100% the most underrated movie ever. I'm not saying it's the best movie ever, but the most underrated movie ever. I want to see if anybody in the live chat, if you know what I'm about to say, to see how many of you have been watching me for a while. If you know what movie I'm about to say that I think is the most underrated movie ever. Like, it just deserves so much more. Not Nice Guys, although that one's really good. Definitely not Terminal, because I do not like Terminal. I don't think Man of Steel, because Man of Steel, I think, is the most underrated comic book movie of all time. Man of Steel is the most underrated comic book movie of all time, but not the most underrated movie of all time. I'm surprised I'm not seeing anybody in there getting it. Definitely not Howard the Duck, not Cujo. Cujo's great. There it is. Somebody got it. First one in there to get it is Sans Stardust. I think Stardust is absolutely the most underrated film ever. It is the spiritual successor to Princess Bride. And in one movie, you have Superman, because Henry Cavill's in it. Daredevil, Charlie Cox is the lead of it. You've got Claire Danes, who's so good in it. You got Robert De Niro and Michelle Pfeiffer and Ricky Gervais and just Mark Strong. And it's such a good movie, man. To me, it is the new Princess Bride. I mean, the Princess Bride will always be the Princess Bride, but it is the new Princess Bride. It is a masterpiece in beautiful fantasy fairy tale storytelling. I love Stardust, man. And nobody's seen it and nobody talks about it. And that's why I think, to me, Stardust is the most underrated film ever made. That's just me, though. All right. Thanks for the question, Keaton. And I'm glad you loved Walter Mitty, dude. All right. John Redcorn writes, bigger opening weekend, Goat or Hoppers? Honestly, I don't think anybody's going to go see either one of them. I think Goat is the one that's got Steph Curry behind it, which is always a good thing. I'm going to say Hoppers. I'm going to go on a limb and I'm going to guess Hoppers. Hoppers will be the bigger one. I could be wrong, but that's going to be my guess. All right. Sora Fan also writes in, by the way, you should definitely have a movie meetup in King of Persia, Pennsylvania, near Netflix house. Let's go Doomsday. What is King of Persia? Is that an actual town? Or is it a building? Is it a theater? Somebody let me know. But I will be bringing movie meetups to Pennsylvania after, like, once we get into springtime and summer. Like, whether, I don't know for sure whether it's going to be in the Pittsburgh area or the Philadelphia area, but we will be going to Pennsylvania. I just don't know exactly where, and it won't be for at least a few months yet. All right. Thanks for that, Sora. Next up, we've got G. Sweatin, who writes, have you seen the Timothée Chalamet rap music video? I have not seen this yet. The Timothée Chalamet rap music video he did with SD Kid in promotion for Marty Supreme. It's called For Raw's Remix, Life Changing. I have not. The only thing I know of Timothée Chalamet and rapping was that Saturday Night Live sketch of It's All About the Yeet Yeet. That's the only thing I've got for him in rapping, but I've had people telling me about it. I'm going to have to watch it at some point, but I have not seen it yet. But thank you for keeping it on my radar. Right, next up, Mr. Graham91 says, is a movie's individual reception what makes, let me try this again. Is a movie's individual reception what makes is subjective, while at the same time it can be objectively produced poorly? No. There's no such thing as, when it comes to quality, unless it can be objectively and empirically measured, it is subjective. You can't look at one tree and say that tree is prettier than that tree and that be an objective fact. You can't, because you can't measure it. Only if you can measure something with empirical data is something objective. Now, you can say this tree is taller than that tree. Why can you say that? Because you can empirically measure it. You can take out a tape measure and say, yes, this tree is 6 meters, 35 centimeters, while this tree is 5 meters, 18 centimeters. That is objective empirical data. That's not based on opinion. That's not based on taste. It is empirical, immovable data. When it comes to movies, there's no such thing. You can measure the runtime, but you can't measure it. And that's why if I want to know if somebody really doesn't actually get what movies are, it's when they say, you can objectively say this movie's better than that. Then you just simply fundamentally don't understand art, and you fundamentally don't understand movies, and you fundamentally don't understand what the word objective means. Because unless it can be empirically, quantifiably measured, then it's subjective. And that's not a bad thing. That is a great thing about the movies. That is a great thing about the art. That two of us can look at the same movie and have different experiences from it. And neither one of us are objectively right and objectively wrong. It just hit us in two different ways. That's the beautiful thing about the art. Anyway, that's just that. All right. Next up, we've got Raymond Verada, who writes, how do actors like Mahershala Ali, Simu Liu, Henry Cavill make money when they are waiting for films to be filmed or shown? Then it doesn't happen. They don't. Have you ever heard the term starving actors? There's a reason in Hollywood and in LA, and this is an overgeneralization, but I'll use hyperbole for the point, that in LA, when you go into any restaurant, it is a 90% chance that the person serving you, hopefully doing a great job, that the person serving you is actually an actress or an aspiring actress, or actually an actor or an aspiring actor. When you get to the level of guys like Mahershala Ali, Simu Liu, Henry Cavill, well, hopefully at that point you've made enough money that you can go a couple of years without another job or whatever. But yeah, man, actors, or they can go do personal appearances, or they can sign up and do commercials, or they can go, slum it and do some streaming show, or they can go to fan conventions and sign autographs. There's a lot of different ways that when you're an actor of note that you can make money. But yeah, it's like for everybody else who are actors, that's why they call them starving actors, man, because it's tough. I have a lot of respect for actors and I'm not talking about the famous ones. I have a lot of respect for people trying to break into acting because you have to have a mental toughness that is superhuman to go through the level of rejection. I remember I was talking to this one actor that said like they get rejected like 100 to 200 times before they get a bite. It's you have to have an incredible level of insanity or mental toughness to do that. And that's why I have all the respect in the world for them. Anyway, Disgraceful Entertainment writes, Spider-Man 2002 is the very first movie I saw in theaters as a kid, but it is not the greatest trilogy, especially up there with Spider-Verse trilogy coming up. I completely disagree. But you know what, man? I think I've told this story before. Indulge me for a second. But one of my most memorable movie watching experiences ever was watching the first Spider-Man movie, the first Sam Raimi Spider-Man movie. Me and a couple of friends were down in Indianapolis at Star Wars Celebration, where we won a couple of awards. And we were showing off our fan film, our Star Wars fan film, Rise of the Trades. Some of you may not know, I made a Star Wars fan film called Rise of the Trades. It's cinema. Anyway, while there, a very good friend of mine who was working for Lucasfilm at the time, and he was like the director of LucasArts or whatever, he introduced me to the senior vice president of Lucasfilm. And Eduardo Sanchez, I believe that was his name, who was the director of the first Blair Witch Project movie. And so me and my friends and my buddy at Lucasfilm and the senior vice president of Lucasfilm and Eduardo from Blair Witch Project, we were all hanging out. And the senior vice president of Lucasfilm says, hey, my friend at Sony, I believe it was Sony, says that a local theater here has a copy of that Spider-Man movie that's coming out in a couple of months. And we can go tonight in Indianapolis and just have a private screening in this big movie theater with just like the 7 of us. And we can just go watch this new Spider-Man movie. And so it was wild, man. Me and my buddy Dave, who was in Rise of the Trades, he had driven down to Indianapolis with me. So me and my buddy Dave and my buddy Paul and the senior vice president of Lucasfilm and the guy who made Blair Witch Project and 1 or 2 other people, we just got in this SUV, drove to this movie theater at like 11 o'clock at night, and they opened up the doors for us. And that was our first viewing of the first Spider-Man movie. And it was so much fun. It was so much fun. I just had such a blast doing that. It was such a surreal experience for a movie fan to be sitting there getting this special screening. And I was with the vice president of Lucasfilm at the time. Total blast. And yeah, great memories of it. Great memories of it. Anyway, sorry guys, during Q&A time, I go off on tangents. I apologize. Thanks for that, Disgraceful Entertainment. Next up, Baldur's Skate writes, have you started Claire Obscure Expedition 33 yet? I have not. I bought it. I've got it on my PlayStation. It's ready to go, but I do want to finish Dispatch first. I've not finished Dispatch first. I'm really enjoying Dispatch, by the way. But I want to get through that first. And then the very next thing I'm going to pick up is Expedition 33. All right. Next up, we got Paul Mammer. And Paul Mammer writes, if the Man of Tomorrow trailer has a Netflix logo at the end of it, that logo will reduce its box office by 20%. Overreaction. Yeah, it's an overreaction. And it won't. It won't. Because it won't be a Netflix film. It's going to be a Warner Brothers film. So no, it won't have a Netflix. But even if it did, even if Warner Brothers, Netflix, whatever, it's not going to reduce the box office. Will it cause a little confusion with some people in the general movie going on and say, oh, wait a minute, so it's a Netflix film? But that confusion will last about 5 seconds until somebody tells them, oh, no, this one's going to theaters. So I don't think it'll have the Netflix logo on it. And even if it did, I really don't think it's going to make any difference. All right. Next up, we have Abracadabra writes, there's only blade. You probably mean there's only one blade. There's only ever going to be one blade. Great line in it. I don't think it actually means anything, but yes, that was a great line in Deadpool and Wolverine. Got everybody really excited. All right. Next up, Raul writes, Hey, John and crew, what performance do you guys prefer? Brad Pitt in F1 or Margot Robbie from Wolf of Wall Street, or any Harley Quinn? Wow, that's a good one. Not Harley Quinn, but Margot Robbie in Wolf of Wall Street was phenomenal. Like, it's easy to put any, like, whether you're talking about supposed to be some hot dude or some hot girl, it's easy to throw in some blonde bimbo, male or female, interrole just to look good, right? And Margot Robbie absolutely did that, but she acted the crap out of that. Like, that was the movie that made everybody go, oh my God, this girl is somebody and something to be taken seriously. And now she's an Oscar caliber actor. Oh, I see what you mean. You meant Brad Pitt in F1 or Troy. Punctuation is our friend, guys. Punctuation is our friend. Brad Pitt in F1 or Troy, comma, Margot Robbie, Wolf of Wall Street, or Harley Quinn. Okay. Man, Brad is really good in Troy. I didn't like the movie overall, but Brad is really good in Troy. We are lions. I really do like that. If I had to pick one, I'm going to say Margot Robbie in Wolf of Wall Street. If I had to pick between the collection, Brad Pitt in F1 and Troy, or Margot Robbie as Harley Quinn or in Wolf of Wall Street, I'll take the collection of Brad Pitt. But if I had to pick just one project, I'll say Margot Robbie in Wolf of Wall Street. Good question, though, now that I understand what you meant. All right. King Tane writes, what's the big difference between regular IMAX and 70 millimeter IMAX? Size and projection. I ask because my IMAX is one of the 3 theaters that they announced would be upgraded to a 70 millimeter a couple of months ago. Yeah, it is fundamentally different. The seating in the auditorium is different. The size of the screen is different. The resolution at which it's projected is different. IMAX screens are great. True IMAX screens, the 70 millimeters, is a different experience. And yeah, once you walk into one, you'll totally see the difference. And all right, guys, that is all the super chats that we have. Again, I turned them off about 20 minutes before we started answering them. But you know what? I got a couple of minutes left, just a couple of minutes. So here's what I'm going to do. If you guys are still here in the live chat, if you have a question for me, do what I just put in there. Put in all capital letters, question, and fire in a question or two. I'm going to let you know right now, I'm not going to answer all of them. I'm going to cherry pick out 1 or 2 or 3 of them and answer just a couple. And we'll go from there. All right. This one. Question. Which film do you dislike the most? Assassin's Creed or Rise of Skywalker? Okay, so it's 2 different answers. I think Assassin's Creed is the even worse movie, but I disliked The Rise of Skywalker even more because of just all the things involved with that. All right. This one comes to us from Yanni, who writes in, question, Marvel will re-release Endgame trailer with all the best scenes from it. Yeah, why not? Like, because we already know they're going to do a re-release of Endgame. And when they do, it's not like they have to worry about spoilers. Everybody already knows Endgame. So yeah, they are going to put a highlight reel of Endgame into the trailer that they do put out to promote the re-release. So yeah, I think you're right about that. I'm on that so far. Jake Clark writes, thoughts on Fallout Season 2 so far? Haven't started watching it yet. I love Fallout. Love Season 1, but I'm behind on a number of things, and I have not started watching Season 2 yet so far. Let's see here. Buddha writes, would you love an NHL Winter Classic game in LA? You can't. I just don't think you can do it. I don't think you can get weather conducive that'll hold an ice rink together and not have it become all chippy. So I'm going to guess no. Let's see. Quasi writes, who is on the short list of people you tell spoilers to? Well, I'm not going to tell you that because then you're just going to reach out to those people and ask them. So I'm not going to answer that at all. No chance. All right, let me take one more here. Let's see. Question. Steph C writes, without any spoilers, do they explain in the script of Doomsday why Dr. Doom looks like Tony Stark? I'm trying to, I know the answer. I'm just trying to decide how to answer it. Let me put it this way. I'll put it this way. They do not, nor should they. And that answer will come in Secret Wars. They don't, and that's okay, because they will in Secret Wars. And I think it's the right decision. I can't give any more context or justification or whatever to that. But unless they change something very last second, no, they do not explain in this movie why Doom looks like Tony. They don't, and that's going to be something that comes a little bit later on. All right. And that'll do it, guys, for today's installment of the John Campea Show. Thank you so much, everybody, for being here and making today's show a part of your day. Listen, guys, I know there's 100 other things you could be doing right now, and the very fact that you guys choose to come and hang out with us and spend some time with us every day, that absolutely means the world to me, and I'm so appreciative of it. So thank you guys so much for doing that. Don't forget, I'll probably do an open mic this weekend sometime, maybe Sunday, because Saturday's kind of booked right now, but maybe Sunday I'll do an open mic. At least I'll aim for it. I'll see if I can get around to doing that. And then, of course, the show returns on Monday. Guys, spread the word. Let people know about our show. Make sure you, guys, I know it becomes like a little bit of an automatic thing, but make sure you click the thumbs up button on this video. Give it a like. It really helps. Leave a comment below. That helps it out as well. We very rarely ask you to do that, but today I'll ask you guys, do that kind of stuff for us. That'd be great. All right, guys, that'll do it for me for now. Thanks a lot for being here. My name is John Campea, and until next time, my friends, bye-bye.